What's up, everybody? Today I'm going to show you how to transform your backyard dividing wall or fence from this to this by creating your very own DIY privacy lattice. Now, this is a pretty simple project you can do at home with just a few basic materials and tools that'll really add some extra privacy to your dividing wall or fence line. So, without further ado, let's get into it. First, let's take a look at the materials you'll need for this DIY project. Up first, you'll see that I have a pre-built lattice panel that I purchased from Home Depot for about $36. This panel is 8 feet wide by about 1 foot tall. You can probably find these at your local home goods store as well. I'm not going to be teaching you how to build an actual lattice in this video. I'm going to be using a pre-built one, again, that I bought from Home Depot. It's also worth noting that all the wood I'm using for this project is redwood because of its natural water resistance. Next, I have two 1.5 by 1.5 posts. These posts are about 8 feet long, and I'm going to be using these to attach my lattice panel to. Now, there's going to be some folks that might recommend using a larger post, and that's completely okay. If you feel more comfortable using a wider or larger post to attach your panel to, I would encourage you to do so. But I've built these before in the past, and even though this may seem like a small post, it gets the job done. Up next, I have some exterior wood screws. I'm going to be using 2-inch screws for my lattice because of the size of the post that I have. If you're using larger posts, you may need a larger screw, so just keep that in mind. Lastly, you'll need some concrete to set your post in. I'm using Quikrete fast setting concrete. This stuff is really easy to use, and you won't need a whole lot of it if you're using smaller posts like I am. Obviously, if you're going to be using larger posts or building multiple panels, you'll want to pick up a few of these bags of concrete, but this will be necessary to secure your post into the ground. Now, to give you an idea of the total cost for one privacy lattice, the panel itself was about $36. Each post was about $7. If you factor in the concrete and the screws, you're looking at about $55 per panel. Next, we'll take a look at some of the tools you'll need for this project. You'll see on the top left, I have a drill to pre-drill your holes, a screwdriver or impact driver, a shovel or a post digger, a measuring tape, a level, and I have a miter saw. Now, this might not be something that everyone has in their household. Any saw could work. You could also go to your local Home Depot or home goods store, and I know they are able to cut wood for you, but you will need to have your measurements ahead of time if you go that route. So if you don't have a miter saw or your own saw, maybe see if you can borrow one from a neighbor or a friend. Otherwise, your other option would be to have your wood cut in advance at your local home goods store. Now, before you get started with assembly, what I like to do is lay out all of the lattice panels that I'm going to need to cover the length of my wall. What this does is provide you with an idea of where your posts are going to go, and it also allows you to figure out which side of each lattice panel you're going to want facing your lawn. Once you have your lattice panel and your post ready, it's time to attach your post to your panel. So what I did is attached each post to the back side of the panel so that it was on the opposite end that would be facing my lawn. So you can see here I'm pre-drilling my holes, one in the top left corner of the panel and one in the bottom left corner of the panel. Once your holes are pre-drilled, you are going to get your impact driver or your screwdriver, and you will insert the screws into the back of the post and into the panel to secure them together. Then you'll head to the other side and you'll repeat the same process. Drill your hole, top right of the panel, bottom right of the panel, and then you'll insert your screws to attach the post to your lattice panel on that side. Now you should have one fully assembled privacy lattice. If you're going to need more than one privacy lattice, you'll just repeat that same assembly process for each one. Next, you're going to grab your measuring tape and you're going to measure the distance between your two posts. What this is going to do is give you an accurate idea of where your holes need to be dug to place your posts and eventually cement them in. Then you'll head to your wall or your fence and you're going to measure that same distance between the two posts. Now you'll want to put your measuring tape where you want the first post to be dug and then extend that measuring tape, which will give you an accurate idea of where your second post is going to be dug. What I like to do is place a little marker or a flag where each post is going to be positioned just so I know if I get sidetracked, I can come back and I'll know exactly where I need to dig those 2 post holes. Then you'll take your measuring tape and measure the height of your wall. This is from the top of the wall to the bottom of the wall where it meets the soil. Once you have the height of your wall, you're going to add an additional 12 to 24 inches for the post hole to that number. You're also going to add an additional 12 to 14 inches for the lattice panel height itself. So altogether, you're going to add the height of your wall plus the depth of your post hole plus the height of your lattice panel. And this will tell you exactly how long your post needs to be when you cut it. Now, let's just say the total of those 3 measurements is 65 inches. What you'll do is take your measuring tape and measure from the top of your lattice panel 65 inches down to your post, and this is where you're going to make your cut. You'll want to take these 3 measurements for every post you're going to bury, just in case your wall changes height or sizes as it goes down. Once you've measured and calculated the total height of your next post, you'll repeat the same process. Measure from the top of that panel all the way down to the total length that you've determined. Now it's time to make your cuts. You'll line up each post and make the cut at the measurement or the mark that you've determined. And you can probably imagine at this point why it might be helpful to have your own saw. If you have your posts cut at a hardware store or a home goods store, it leaves you very little room for adjustments or error once you get those posts back home. So again, I strongly recommend using your own saw or borrowing or even renting a saw just so you have the convenience of pivoting if you need to make additional cuts on your post later. Now that you've cut your post to the appropriate height, it's time to head back to your wall and start digging. Now, I would recommend digging at least 12 to 16 inches deep for each post. A lot of folks are going to recommend that you dig deeper, maybe 2 feet or more, and that's completely fine. But because I'm using smaller posts, I feel comfortable digging a hole about 12 to 16 inches deep, and I'm going to be throwing post concrete in there so they aren't going to move or go anywhere. You're also going to want to dig your hole 3 times the width of your post. So again, I'm using smaller posts. That's not going to look or seem very large, but it is just enough to make sure that those posts are secure. Now, keep in mind, the depth of your post hole is going to impact and determine the total length of your post before it's cut. So take that into consideration before you cut your post and start digging your hole. Now that you've dug your 2 post holes, you can take your lattice and place the post into the holes. You're not going to cement or concrete them in at this point. You're really just trying to get an idea of the position of the lattice, making sure it's level, and if you need to, you can sort of tap and hammer in either side just to make sure you have enough distance above the wall for your purposes. I found it helpful to take a few steps back just to get a bird's eye view of how level this lattice was from side to side. Again, making minor adjustments with a hammer or mallet to ensure it was level and in the right position. If you're going to need more than one privacy lattice like I did, you just repeat the same process. Calculate your measurements, make your cuts, dig your holes, and place your privacy lattice into your new holes, tapping and leveling as needed. Next, you'll want to attach your 2 privacy lattices together, so you'll pre-drill 2 holes, one towards the top and one towards the bottom of the 2 posts, and you'll place 2 screws, again, one at the top, one at the bottom, joining the 2 lattices together through the post. This will obviously adhere them together, and it'll reduce or minimize any gaps between the 2 privacy lattices, making for a more flush look and feel. You'll repeat this process for the entire length of your wall or fence line. Remember to take your measurements for every post to account for any changes in height that your wall or fence might have. This is going to keep your privacy lattice level throughout the duration of your wall and make your life a whole lot easier in the long run. Once you've finished placing each privacy lattice and everything looks level, it's time to add your concrete. Fill your hole with the dry concrete, adding water and mixing with a small shovel along the way. You'll repeat this process for every post, ensuring that you're allowing your concrete the allotted time needed to dry before covering it with any topsoil. And with that, your privacy lattice is complete. What's nice about this type of privacy lattice is that you don't have to attach it directly to your wall or fence, and it's easy to remove if you ever had to down the road. For those who may not have soil along their wall, I've seen people use planter boxes or pots to cement their post in that way. Keep in mind, there are many different ways that you can complete this project. Some folks may use different methods or completely disagree with the methods I've used here, but this has worked for me in the past and I'm sure it'll work for me now. And most importantly, it saved me a lot of money. So I hope this was helpful, and I wish you the best of luck if you decide to take this project on yourself. Until next time.